Learn the most advanced recruiting techniques. Land the most desirable talent. Launch your company towards massive success. This is the Higher Power Radio Show with Rick Girard.
Stacking the deck with A-player talent. Today we're making the commitment to hiring excellence. And to do this, you must change your mindset, your expectations, and your hiring method. The transition away from best practices, what everyone else is doing, is not necessarily going to help your company stand out. So, to fill your staff with A players, you need to develop your B players into A players and significantly increase the likelihood that your company will crush it. Today's insight is the spark to set your standard in building an amazing company. Today's quote: individual commitment to a group effort, that is what makes teamwork, a company work, and a society work. And that was our friend Vince Lombardi. I'm Rick Girard, and welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show. Our mission is to help entrepreneurs and hiring managers avoid costly hiring mistakes by identifying a specific problem and providing proven solutions to help your company win the right hire. We share insights from top-performing rebel entrepreneurs, disruptors, and industry experts like our guest today, Mr. Kevin Lawrence. Kevin is the CEO of Lawrence & Company. Now, CEOs typically place their first call to Kevin with a crisis to solve, and they stay because of his business acumen and no-holds-barred, tell-it-like-it-is style. Kevin's worked with hundreds of CEOs and executives, helping them to break through business challenges, grow their companies, and find personal success along the way. These experiences inspired Kevin's book, Your Oxygen Mask First, in which he reveals the 17 habits every leader must know to transcend the perils of success and achieve even more, which makes Kevin the perfect guest for today's topic. Kevin, welcome to the Higher Power Radio Show today.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here today. Should be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. We've been talking offline, so it's great to spend a little bit of time with you on the air. So today we're going to cover a few things. We're going to talk about the philosophy behind poor hiring practices, and that kind of comes in and around really attitude. We're going to look at what a B, and C player would look like, and we're going to talk about implementing a methodology to fill every position with A players, because that's what we do, right, Kev?
That's the idea. That's the aspiration that we all have anyways.
Exactly. All right, so let's get started with the obvious question. Why is this important?
Well, because for a lot of people, we work really hard at what we do. We've got companies that we want to do amazing things with and have an impact in the world, but if our team isn't strong enough, companies just won't make it, and either we as leaders burn out or get exhausted, or sometimes we start to believe it's not possible. So having the right people it makes you or breaks you.
So very true. So very true. And this really is the all too common philosophy that most startups share, which is they just get the money and they start grinding it out, right? And they don't really put much thought into this. Oh, and we lost Kevin. We got you back, Kevin?
Hey, I'm back. I don't know. All of a sudden, we dropped away.
I know. Crazy. Well, it's those phones. Yeah. AT&T. It must be an iPhone. Anyway.
Yeah.
There's my dig on Apple right now. All right. So there's an all too common philosophy I think most startups share. And let's talk a little bit about aspirations, because you and I talked about this offline. What's your position on this?
In terms of?
In terms of, the mindset, the philosophy, why entrepreneurs and business leaders just settle, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think it's our programming in the world of business, because, like for me, if we look at the world of pro sports, they got it figured out. Teams want to win. They want to win the Super Bowl or the Stanley Cup. I'm from Canada, so we think hockey.
I'm with you on that one. I'm a hockey fan as well.
Yeah, perfect. So I just came from Montreal today, actually, where one of the legendary hockey teams, the Montreal Canadiens, are from. And, it's like, if you want to win the cup, the coaches and the owners by default think only the best can be on the ice. And if you're not the best, you're on the bench. And if you sit on the bench for too long, you get pushed down to the farm team. And I know if any of us, any of the entrepreneurs, if we took over an NHL hockey team, we would adopt that identical philosophy right away. Only the best get to be on the ice. Somehow in the world of business, the whole world's got a different mindset. And the mindset is play with who you got. It's like gather a bunch of guys from the local rec center and, give her a go and see how it works. And for whatever reason, there's this belief that you can be successful in business with good people, where in pro sports, we know it has to be great people. And that's just, I think it's a limiting belief system that almost every entrepreneur has.
That is so very true. And your belief is actually those good people can be developed into excellent people.
Some. Like everybody has a place where they're an A player. And sometimes it ends up being, they need coaching, or they need develop, or they need mentoring. Sometimes they need to be in a different job. Their parents told them they should be an accountant, but in reality, they're wired to be a salesperson or a customer service agent. There's that you have to get through. Or maybe they think they're supposed to be in industry and they want to be in a fast-paced, exciting environment, but they're wired to work in a government office in a small community, which is what happened with one of my good friends. So those people always can be a high performer. Almost all people can be a high performer somewhere, but it may not be where they are.
All right. So as an entrepreneur or a business leader, you really need to have adopt the mentality that you're building an NHL team, you're building an NFL team, you're building the best company you can build, and you should not skew from that, correct?
And not settle.
Yeah.
No.
Absolutely.
And there's a million reasons why people do. And that's why, you provide the advice and services you provide. And that's why myself and my coaches and my team are infinitely busy, because that is easy to say and very, very hard to do.
That is so very true. So let's give the audience just a quick understanding of what the hiring perspective should be. I think when we talked, one of the things you said to me was that most leaders don't scrutinize hires enough. And it requires rigor and discipline around the hiring. And so let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so let's take a sports example and the book and the movie Moneyball and the famous coach Billy Beane. He went into the baseball business, we'll call it a business, it is a business, and found that the scouts and the coaches made decisions a lot on how fast a guy could run, and on how he looked, and did he have the jaw, as they called it in that book, which is almost funny. But he looked like a good baseball player. And Billy Beane, didn't have a big budget, so he hired people through statistics and facts. And long story short, the team ended up, dominating with a fraction of the budget, because he did a scientific approach to basically hiring baseball players instead of, a perception-based approach. And that's what we need to do. The way I explain it, a lot of entrepreneurs will meet someone, even their HR people will interview somebody for, half hour, 45 minutes. They come from an impressive company, good resume, everything looks good. They get a nice perception and they make an offer.
Yeah, I like to call that assumption-based hiring too, right? They make the assumption that somebody is going to be good because they've got the right background.
It all seems good. And the worst thing is, when they come from a big brand company, we give them credit that they don't deserve necessarily because of the brand. That kind of this halo of the brand shines all over them. So and I say it'd be equivalent like picking your partner in life after having lunch with them. Most of us would never do that.
That does happen on Jerry Springer, I think, right?
Yeah, it does. And it does. I mean, in other cultures, although even in other cultures where there's arranged marriages, the families take time to get to know the family and everything. So I think it's kind of like picking your partner in life. Maybe you go on a few dates. Maybe you get to know more than one or two things about them. And you should really, really deeply understand the person, their motivation, their track record. But most people don't. They skim the surface, and it's like that lunch metaphor with picking your spouse. And then they wonder why it doesn't work and their business is full of headaches.
So very true. And, it's really important. I think if you approach hiring from the perspective, like you treat each person like that's $1 million person, $1 million hire, it's going to change your perspective a little bit as well, because you're not going to think, well, it's just a short investment. I mean, every person really is, in essence, $1 million hire.
At least, and if it's a senior exec and your company's bigger, the impact can be $2, $3, $4, $5 million. So yes, I think if you think that, especially for a top leader role like your direct report, it's $1 million decision every time, and either it's going to add $1 million to your bank or take $1 million, which I've seen it do many, many times. It makes you take it a little bit more seriously, because the people make all the difference in the world. They make your life heaven or hell.
That is so very true. And you got to keep raising the bar. All right, you're listening to the Higher Power Radio Show. I'm Rick Girard. For our podcast listeners, we're going to take a quick educational moment from our sponsors. Find out how healing a person's pain points attracts amazing people to your company. Sign up for our passive talent workshops at stridesearch.com. Today, our guest is Kevin Lawrence. Kevin is the CEO of Lawrence & Company, and we're talking about A players. So we just talked a little bit about how to get in the mentality of hiring A players. But now let's delve into how to do it, Kevin, because you've got a specific method that you do use, and I have one as well. And I think it's really important that people adopt a really strong methodology in identifying people and hiring those people on, because you can find them, but you can also blow it and not be able to get them.
Yep.
How do we make the transition first to hiring excellence?
Well, first you have to decide in your own mind. You've got to decide that you, one, believe it's possible. And, we've done it many times in companies to stack the deck with A players, as high as 91% A players. And those are people who fit your culture very well and consistently deliver as expected. That's an insanely high bar.
And that is a lot less work on the CEO, right? Like that's a smiling CEO.
It is. It does create a bit of a different challenge.
Sure.
And the challenge is you've got a pack of wild, thoroughbred racehorses that want to run and deliver, and you just got to make sure you have the skill sets and you move quickly enough for those people to be able to be productive and happy. So it's almost like instead of pulling your team often pulls you, which is a great problem to have.
That's a fantastic problem to have. So how do we identify the A player?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing is, one, you got to know what you're looking for. And, I'm a huge believer in the research that Brad Smart did in his book, Top Grading. And his son, Jeff, kind of extended in a book, Who, that's kind of written more for entrepreneurial companies. But they say you start with a scorecard. Like, you got to know what you're hunting for. It's like if you and your spouse are looking for a house, usually you have a fair good idea of what you're looking for and you try and find it. Well, with these roles, we need to get really specific and mathematical, ideally, like a mathematical spec. And they have 50 competencies. You rate the person on so you know how much of each competency is required for the job, which competencies are non-negotiable. But it's a statistical job description is where all of our clients start, because then you're more likely to notice the things that are missing from what you need and or recognize them if they're there.
So first off, you need to have a really well put together job description, right? Something that's well defined, clear. Anything in the job description that you feel is necessary?
Yeah, get rid of all the words that your HR department wants to put in there.
100%. Amen, brother.
One page of words maximum. 1 page of words, ideally. The KPIs that they will be measured on and accountable to delivering on a consistent basis.
Basically, performance metrics.
Performance metrics, exactly. Yeah. The performance metrics that role will be measured based on, and then the competencies or the skills required to do that job well. That's it. It's maximum 2-3 pages. Again, a page of words, some KPIs and competencies. I'm
pretty confident you can get it done and just putting the performance metrics in and not having hey, we have a ping pong table.
Yeah, and again, in these jobs, we don't have any of those. That might be a job in an ad, but if that's what it takes to attract talent, do it. But that's,
So, okay, you got a crystal clear job description. Now, I would imagine the next thing is the interview process. What do we need to be able to do there?
Yeah, well, in the interview process, always you need 2 people. One person is not enough. Because it's a lot of work to interview somebody well, and some candidates need a bit of management. So 2 people, so that you can have 2 brains and you have someone to debrief with based on observations.
Now, we're talking about the top grading method right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
They call it the SIDS interview or the top grading interview, which is 2 people. And again, if you're interviewing me, I'm in my late 40s, you would have 2 people and it would be 3-4 hours. Like if you're going to offer me an executive job in a company with a few $100,000 a year and a big bonus and lots of responsibility, you're going to want to know what makes me tick and what doesn't. So it's a long interview where you're really digging deep on what you want to know and excavating copious amount of facts. And when I would tell you a story about a major impact I've had on someone, you might spend 5 or 10 minutes on one story to understand who, what, when, where, why, how much, how many, how come, what came out of it, what didn't came out of it, what did you learn? How did you deal with your direct reports? How did you deal with your boss? How did you deal with a customer? Like, truly putting yourself in the middle of the circumstance of that big accomplishment or that big learning to really understand what's going on. And that's where you understand people, because it's like you were there as a witness to the situation, and they start to paint you a picture and you see how they think and how they interact and what skills they have and what skills they don't. Versus, tell me a time that you managed conflict well. Well, even the biggest jerks in the world managed to conflict well once in the last 20 years. So that is useless information. Absolutely useless. It's way too easy to lie, And it's way too easy to pick the one time in your entire life you did it right.
You're doing basically a behavioral interview that's on steroids, right? Like you're going super deep, whereas there are behavioral methods have a lot of validity to them. I think the situational ones are the ones where you get yourself into trouble.
I don't know if...
really? Situational ones, like how would you handle this situation?
Yeah,
like that you can lie through. Yeah, complete waste of time.
But even behavioral questions, I mean, there's there's different opinions on everything.
Well, you have to be measured about your behavioral questions. You have to be specific and link them to things that are important.
We don't even do them. What we do is ask about going back from high school or university up till today, every single job. What were your major accomplishments? What were your major learnings or lessons or challenges? How was your relationship with your boss? What would your boss say were your strengths? What would your boss say are weaknesses? And a couple other questions, and dig deep. We don't do anything behavioral. We just excavate facts like you've never seen in your life.
I get that, but how does that tie in though to the core company values or the values of the company? Like, how do you know somebody's going to fit well in that?
You see it. Man, I was interviewing this one guy, and he was in an industry I won't talk about. But as we were,
he was in porn.
He was going to get... No. I don't want to say the industry because I don't want to get him in trouble.
I'm totally kidding.
He was in a total normal business.
Sure.
But and he was going to get hired. He'd been through 5 interviews in the company. HR had been, they probably spent 10 hours with the guy. At the 60-minute mark, I go, this guy is a liar. He's a donkey, and his integrity sucks. And he's this condescending jerk to his people on top of it. In 60 minutes of the digging in through his history, because as I went from one job to the next job to the next job and digging deep, man, his character was showing up like you wouldn't believe. Most people have never done an interview of proper, deep excavation type interview like we do. And they're fun, by the way. Like we have a great time with the candidates.
Oh, they're totally fun.
They are. At the 75-minute mark, I had to stop and just start having fun with the guy and joking because he was done. It was really clear that I excavated enough facts, and he was like, there's no way I'm getting the job. He knew. He started to slump in his chair. And I was joking around, and we were having fun. But as the things he started to tell me showed his character in a way where he didn't plan on showing. And so the questions are unbelievable. And again, Mr. Smart created them. We just execute them really, really well. And, I've practiced them a lot. But you understand the values, you understand the competencies, you understand them better than their own mother would understand them. It's unbelievable.
So what you're really looking at is you're looking at character patterns. You're trying to identify the character patterns.
Yep. Character patterns, skill abilities, beliefs, everything. Basically, you're just what you're going to see at 6 or 9 months, we're getting on the table before you make the offer. But the key is to stay in the one job, in the one challenge or the one big accomplishment, and really soak into the facts and excavate them. Which, when I demonstrate it to people and they see me do it, people are like, wow, I didn't even think you could do that.
One other thing I want to touch upon, because we're running a little bit short on time, is that reference checks. You're a big proponent. Like, tell me how you set up reference checks, because I think this is a really smart way of doing it, and I think a lot of people should do it that same way.
Well, first of all, we don't set them up. We get the candidate to do it. Tell them in the process that we're going to speak to a number of their bosses, probably going back 10 or 15 years if they've been working that long. And as we're doing the interview process, we note the managers that they reported to, and then those are the people we ask them to set up interviews with. Now, the A players, almost all those people are going to be thrilled to talk to us because the person was a rock star. The B players, hit and miss. The C players,
their managers are all dead.
They're dead or they moved out of the country. But it's true. It's true. It's a pattern that shows up.
Yep.
I mean, these people aren't stupid, right? They know that if you talk to their managers, they're not going to corroborate their stories, and there's no way they're getting the job. So they want to send you to their aunt, their uncle, their best friend, their second cell phone number so they can answer it. Them set it up. And the patterns are spectacular.
Why don't you give us a couple takeaways for the audience so that they can plug this into their business? What do you want them to walk away with?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is you just got to make sure and that you scrutinize your facts and really, really get deep facts on people and know that the people that are driving, that are in HR, sometimes this is harder because it goes against traditional HR theory.
So very true.
So really deeply scrutinize somebody in their 40s. It's going to take 3-4 hours at least to interview them for a senior role. Frontline role, less. And then you need amazing people if you're going to build an amazing company. You can't win in the NHL or the NFL or the NBA with average players. And you need to change your belief. If you got big things, if you're just okay with your business, please ignore me. But if you really want to do something great people do great things. Yeah, and the final thing is the root of my book. And in order to do this, you need to be strong and clear. And, in your Oxygen Mask First, we talk about resilience rituals and taking very good care of yourself. If you're strong and you're clear, you'll be able to do the tough things and make the tough calls around your people. Sometimes that's just giving tough feedback. But if you're depleted, you won't even want to think about dealing with these issues, and you make it harder because energetically you're starting from behind.
All right, perfect. Hey, how does our audience find you?
LawrenceandCo.com, LawrenceAndCo.com. There's lots of videos and tools and newsletters, and we do training on things like top grading. We have an expert we bring out from South America, and we're coaches, so we just like to help people.
Awesome. Well, we're just about out of time. Kevin, thanks so much for your time investment today, and I want to welcome you to the Higher Power Radio community.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on the show. I want to thank our listening audience for tuning into this week's episode of Higher Power. A quick thanks to our team, our engineer, Paul Roberts, producers Andrea Ballin, Shanti Ryle, and Ayla Gerard. If you're listening to the podcast, please subscribe, review, and share. We're listening, and we welcome your feedback. After all, this show's for you. Join the Higher Power Radio community at Higher, that's H-I-R-E, Power, P-O-W-E-R, radio, R-A-D-I-O.com. Or you can drop me an email at rick@stridesearch.com. Tune in next week. Our guest is going to be Chris Chansey. Chris is the founder and CEO of Amplio Recruiting. I'm your host, Rick Gerard, and you have been listening to the Higher Power Radio Show. Aloha.
Thank you for listening to Higher Power with Rick Gerard on OC Talk Radio.